This is Bryson Alene. And Alene weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line. 5. Mayfield. Dancy. All around. Throw it as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, we're back with another interview, and in this episode, we have a very special guest returning for a second time. We will be joined by head coach of the Baltimore Lightning, Mr. Eric Marty. Coach, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, Sam. Appreciate you having me back on.
Of course, always excited to talk to you, and it sounds like you've obviously got some rather big news to talk about. Chris, before we get to that, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. Really excited to talk to Coach tonight, for sure.
Absolutely. So, obviously it's been a little while since we had you on last, I think almost 2 years exactly at this point. So
yeah.
A lot's transpired since then, but, most of all, how's everything going for you? Outside of football?
Life's good. Son just turned 1 the other day. And so had the birthday and got his first haircut. So, yeah, man, we're very blessed as a family and, going through that phase of life. So things are good.
Very nice. Very nice. Obviously, the big news at hand that we are kind of bringing you on to speak about is the fact that last time we spoke, you were an offensive coordinator in the USFL, and today you are now a head coach for the first time at the professional level. So I have to ask, what did Baltimore tell you to kind of sell you on the opportunity to come to be their head coach for 2025?
Yeah, I think it was just a belief in what I had to bring to the table and an opportunity to really put my stamp on the organization. Kind of from my understanding was that a connection to the IFA, one Sam Shady kind of got my name in the hat with a couple teams, and Baltimore was the one that ultimately made the big push and took time to meet and sit down, talk through some things, and I feel like preparation met opportunity and had a really good conversation with our GM and owner, Will Hanna, and ultimately felt like it was a good fit. And I love coaching professional football. Love coaching in the spring leagues. I just, college has been really good to me, but people have no idea the caliber and professionalism of the fringe UFL, NFL caliber player. And so for me, it's a really exciting opportunity to continue to work with those guys and allow me to coach the caliber player that I love to coach. And also, I feel like the lessons I've learned being in the USFL and the people I've worked with, I'll have a really good plan to help the guys that we're working with, be successful this year with the Baltimore Lightning, and hopefully, be able to grow their skill set and their discipline on and off the field to a point where they're able to realize a lot of their goals and get to the UFL or the NFL or CFL or whatever it may be.
Coach, one of the first guys you kind of signed to a contract or a camp invite was quarterback Corey Curtis, someone who, was with the NFL, minicamp Seahawks. What did you see in him and kind of compare him to some of the other quarterbacks you coached throughout your career?
Yeah, so Corey was a guy that we looked at pretty seriously with the Panthers, and for whatever reason just didn't quite end up pulling the trigger. At the time, we ended up bringing Lewarke and EJ Perry, and were kind of the two guys that ended up coming in the building. I just think that speaks to how hard it is to, especially at the quarterback position, to get opportunities at any level. Corey obviously really good player. We started at Ohio State, finished at Gannon. But he showed the ability from a physical tool standpoint to make the throws that you want to see a quarterback make, and also do some things athletically. And then talking to his coaches, specifically his offensive coordinator, it felt like he was a guy that would be able to come in and run the system and do the things that I'm looking for a professional quarterback to do, both from a tangible and intangible standpoint. So, he's a guy that I think, like a lot of guys, deserves a pro opportunity, and hopefully, he's going to come in prepared as possible and make the most of it. And one of the things too that I'll bring to the table that some spring coaches do, some don't, but we'll have a pretty robust online classroom, for lack of a better term, as far as the playbook and the Zoom meetings and stuff like that, to really try and give guys a running start and the best possible opportunity to come to camp and win a roster spot, win a starting spot, and really put themselves in a position to put their best possible season together that they can.
Speaking back to your time in the USFL a little bit, I'm curious, did you have any conversations with, say, Paxton Lynch, who's not currently on a roster, before you brought in Corey Curtis?
I mean, we're beating all bushes, and so definitely watching the waiver wires, and I think one of the best parts of this job is that I get to open doors up for guys that are extremely deserving, like Corey. Other guys that played for me or were maybe on the defensive side of the ball in the USFL. One's Jalen Burrell. I actually recruited Jalen to Moore Park Junior College once upon a time out in California when I was the offensive coordinator there. I recruited him as a receiver. I took another job after the season, and he moved to the defensive side of the ball. Went to New Mexico, and then ultimately ended up getting drafted by the Panthers with no influence of my own. And we, obviously reconnected there. And so, he's another guy that we've signed, and a guy that is good enough to be playing, UFL caliber football, but hasn't gotten another opportunity. And so, it's guys like that. And so I think sometimes there's a lot of give and take. Sometimes you find a guy that really should be in the league and you're trying to sign him and maybe they don't. Other guys, you're trying to decide whether or not they're the caliber of player that you want to bring in. So, whether it's a guy that's coming from a FBS, FCS program or a D2, D3 guy, you try and do your research, you try and find guys that have had a lot of success at the college level, or they've been arena all conference players, or it means a lot to me when a guy steps into an organization, whether it's college, whether it's professional, and can establish himself as one of the best players on the team or best players in the league. Those are the type of guys that we're trying to identify, and thankfully there's a lot of really good players out there that fit that mold, that need an opportunity.
Coach, obviously, like, my scouting agency has connected with you multiple times, and I'm sure your email has been blowing up after you got this head coaching position. How do you evaluate talent? I know you have player personnel guys such as Julian Robinson and Matt Wells. What's the relationship with them, and at what point do you receive that film? Does it go through them first, and then they send it up the ladder? How does that process work?
Yeah, we're obviously a small outfit, like most spring league teams. So, I think you're pulling information in from people that contact the league directly, or contact the team directly, or reach out to our GM or Matt or Julian. I'm pulling stuff in from Twitter. I ask players that we signed if they know good prospects, former coaches that I work with or went against. Darren Horton's recommended a couple guys to me, the former Pitt Muller D coordinator. We still stay in touch. So, you get it everywhere you possibly can. And there's a lot of value in known commodities, as far as especially people you trust, that give you a heads up on a player. That means a lot. But ultimately, when the film comes in, we've also brought in another coach recently that had worked with me at Reedley, Adrian Robbins, who's doing some special project stuff. And so, between Matt and Julian and Adrian, film comes in, and I ask those guys to grade it and kind of give me a yes, no, maybe what they think. And then also ask Robbins to dive into their history and, okay, what were their college numbers? What have they done recently? Have they been to a camp? And you're just trying to pull as much information on guys as possible. And, the advent of PFF and different things allows you to pull up and see more film on people. So, it's a multifaceted process, because we don't have as many resources as maybe a NFL team. It's not quite as streamlined as you'd love it to be, but ultimately you try and find guys that you feel like are going to be really, really good players, and we've kind of built a foundation of about 20 or 30 guys pretty quickly that we knew of or we felt really good about, and then we're going to bring 75 into camp, so there's going to be a decent amount of local guys in the area that come in. But then there's also a time for us to be really particular and picky and try and punch above our weight a little bit, and find guys that realistically shouldn't be playing in the IFA that for whatever reason they're on the shelf and need an opportunity. And I think the really cool thing about this is it's going to be a fun league. You're going to get really good film. There's going to be a ton of XFL, USFL, UFL guys in the league. So, and one of the reasons I also felt comfortable taking the job, in addition to some of the heavy hitters with Browns and Hal Mummy and Noel Mazzoni and some different people that are I'm sharing a head coaching title with in the league, was the XFL and USFL going to merge and dropping down 8 teams and cutting 8 teams. I mean, there's just so much talent out there that needs an opportunity. And so I went through that process firsthand. That first year in the USFL, we could pretty much get anybody we wanted. And then, that second year, it was a lot more competitive as far as you're competing against the XFL, and there's 16 teams. Well, once it dropped down to 8, I mean, that's just a ton of really, really good players that need an opportunity. But we're looking everywhere: Arena, ELF, NFL, UFL, grooming the dead rosters from the XFL and USFL, and just ultimately trying to find guys that we feel are again fringe NFL, UFL caliber players that can help us go win football games, but are also going to come in and be motivated with a chip on their shoulder and try and use this opportunity to get to a higher level, because from the top of our organization, our GM, and especially myself, that's the mindset. For me, this is a tremendous opportunity, and I want to absolutely crush it and hopefully open up some more opportunities at higher levels for myself professionally.
Absolutely. Something tells me in a couple of years here we'll be talking to NFL coach Eric Marty. But we'll see. I don't want to speak anything into existence. We got quite a few comments coming in here.
Feel free to speak that one into existence. But no, that's what this thing's about. And so, the hard thing with this league and Arena, whatever it may be, playing in Europe, which I did for 4 years. When you're 21, 22, and you're playing for $1,600 a month, or whatever it is, that's pretty doable. And as you get to 24, 25, 26, and your buddies are all taking real jobs and making real money, and you're the one that's still chasing the dream, it gets harder and harder. But the best part of that is again, we're going to provide a lot of opportunities for really good, deserving players and guys that are serious about chasing it and have a chip on their shoulder. I think this league, a player asked me the other day, "Hey, do you think I can go from the IFA to the NFL?" And the answer is yeah. I think that's a real possibility. Will there be a ton of guys that do it? No, I mean, let's be realistic. But at the same time, I wish I would have played arena football coming out of college in the States, but arena is an awesome game. But the one knock on arena is that it's hard to translate back out, and so it's great to see the guys have been playing ball and staying active. But even as we get arena film, whether it's a O-line, D-line, linebacker type, it's obviously very different in the trenches, and there's even some different rules, or quarterback, receiver, DB. You can see some things and you can see some physical abilities, but again, it's just a little bit harder to project when you're trying to see where a guy's at currently in his professional career. So, I think that's the big advantage to come into our league. And if you've been a tremendous football player for one of the indoor leagues, I think getting back outdoor and putting together fresh film and showing what you can do against top quality professionals, and a lot of guys that, like I said, were just in the XFL or USFL or even NFL, I think is going to serve a lot of guys and open doors to the UFL, CFL, or NFL.
Absolutely. You spoke about Jaron Horton a moment ago. He's tuning in, says Baltimore Lightning 2025 champs. Um,
There you go. We're
so
speaking a lot of things into existence
there we
throughout this
go. There
show,
we go. Positive mindset, right?
no doubt.
So I'm kind of curious. I mean, obviously, you say you keeping in touch with Coach Horton. I imagine you're keeping in touch with several other coaches you worked with along the way. Do you have any insights on who you're bringing in as your staff for 2025?
No, I mean, outside the personnel staff, I haven't made a lot of overtures in that regard. And, a lot of it is just based on the timing of things. And, the USFL paid a lot better from a coaching staff standpoint, and we still had a ton of turnover, late turnover. So, for me, it makes more sense to get through the college hiring cycle in January, February, and kind of that whole process. And then as we get towards middle to late January, I'll really start working my network, and then also taking, putting some things out publicly for people that are interested in it. And, because realistically, if people have a full-time college job, especially the quality program, D1, D2, whatever it may be, that's probably going to be a better, financial fit for them and their family. Again, I think you're going to get a chance to coach really high level ball and really professional guys, but at the same time, there's realistic obligations that we all have. So from the coaching standpoint, build the roster and give me plenty of time to kind of set the vision, and then as we get to January, we'll start filling that staff out, and even some of the other coaches that have come in the league uh, already have picked up jobs at the college level or whatever it may be. So that's the nature of these things. But take it slow and make sure you get the right guys on the roster, and whoever we hire from the staff standpoint is going to be really lucky to step in and get a coach, help coach this group.
Coach, you had a brief stint in 2021 with Grambling State, HBCU. Talk to me about that culture and kind of what was your biggest learning lesson you took away from that opportunity?
I mean, the biggest learning lesson is if you're a genuine dude, you show up and you meet people where you're at, and you keep players first, and you treat people right, you're going to connect and have a great relationship, with a lot of people and specifically players. And so I love my time at Grambling. Unfortunately, I was on staff that I got there in May, and the head coach got let go in November, right before we played the Classic. So, obviously that's not an ideal experience. And so I also had a buddy who was recently at Auburn before their coaching change a couple of years ago, and I went down and watched the game, and it was a cool experience, a cool environment. But it was like, man, if this place was rocking and rolling, it would be unbelievable. And I felt the same way about Grambling. It's like I didn't get to see full-throated Grambling at its peak, at its pinnacle, where you're winning games, and it's got such a great tradition and fan base that, man, like when we won the Classic and upset Southern, it was just such a great vibe. It's so much fun. And so, I felt like it was a really great experience. I really enjoyed connecting and experiencing that environment and connecting with a lot of players from down south. And some of those guys will try and recruit to be a part of the Lightning. But again, for me, it's a little bit wistful as far as I wish we could have got that thing going at a little higher level and had a little more success than we did. But proud of what we accomplished, and again, really enjoyed being a part of that tradition and environment. So definitely something that I count myself as fortunate to be a part of.
Absolutely. So rewinding a little bit here, for those that don't know, rewinding, you go backwards a little bit. I know we got a younger crowd out there. So we're going to go back to your first opportunity as a head coach. You originally got that opportunity with East LA, I believe it was.
Yep.
What did that rising the coaching ranks so quickly kind of teach you? And do you feel in hindsight you were ready for that position at the time?
Yes and no. I mean, you're ready, and like the crazy thing is, you may not be 100% ready, but you're still going to be better than a lot of people out there doing it. And so like I know hopefully Horton's still on on the feed, but like, it's the same thing with the USFL, now UFL opportunities. And we talk about being head coaches in the league. And, if here I got an opportunity in that league, would we be 100% ready? Absolutely not. But we've also seen some of the other guys doing it in the league that, we feel like we could bring more to the table and maybe a different, fresher vision. So, I think if you really believe in yourself and have a really good plan and you put the time and effort into it, are you 100% ready? No, but nobody ever is. But at the same time, you are going to be extremely prepared and you're going to serve your players and your program extremely well. And if you're good at what you do and you're a good leader, you come up with a plan, and every single day and every single week and every single month, you adapt that plan and tailor it and make it a little bit better and change course where you need to change course. And so, the anecdote I always tell from East LA was, I was so ready for that opportunity and had a plan for everything. Our first game, we get out there, and I'm in the coach's office about to go out, but our specialist went out first, and all of a sudden somebody comes running back in, and they're like, "Hey, coach, we don't have any footballs on the field." And so, we had a plan on offense, defense, special teams. We had a plan for recruiting. We had a plan for our weight room. We had a plan to get warmed up, but I'd forgotten to delegate somebody to bring out the footballs on game day, right? And so that's the value of having experience, because you go through it and some of those little nuanced things that maybe you didn't necessarily know. But for me, in a lot of ways, I wish maybe I would have gotten an opportunity to be a GA at a major school and maybe establish a stronger network, especially younger. I'd be at a little different place, but at the same time, your path is your path. And having to do everything and figure it out at East LA, and having to do everything and figure it out at Reedley, and figure out a way to have success. It's something that I know has prepared me extremely well for this opportunity. How to solve problems, how to be adaptable, how to step into an organization and evaluate what's working and what you want to double down on, and maybe what needs to be tweaked. And even some of my lessons playing in Europe, I played for 4 different teams in 4 years and went to 4 championship games and won 2 championships. And, I was a pretty good player, but more than anything, I think my ability to step into an organization and kind of figure out the dynamics and what role I need to play that specific year, what relationship on the team I needed to really be involved in and make work, or whatever role I need to play that year, I think was the strength of helping me have success. So it's those same lessons from playing in Europe and ELAC and Reedley that I took with me to the USFL and the success that I had there, and now I'll take with me to Lightning. And one of the unique things about coaching, being a head coach in the spring league is, people turn on the TV and it looks shiny and nice, but the reality is it's a lot closer to junior college football from a resource standpoint. Not from a player standpoint, because junior college, guys typically lack a little discipline and need to figure it out a little bit. But obviously, spring league, you're working with the best of the best guys that have had a cup of tea in the NFL that are right on the cusp. But from a coaching staff standpoint, from a facility standpoint, from a resource standpoint, it's a lot more junior college as far as, you have limited resources, limited time, and you got to be flexible and creative with a lot of those solutions. So, with that in mind, I feel really, really confident that we'll be able to have a great plan going in to Baltimore. And then, as we get to learn our facility and our resources and the strengths of what we have, as it relates to the Lightning, we'll tighten up that plan, day 1, day 2, week 1, week 2, and all through the season, and figure out a way to have the best year we possibly can down there.
Coach, you're very detailed oriented, and one of the first guys you really sent under you. You sent a ton of guys to higher levels, but the first guy is Ray Bolden. He had the opportunity to play for you in the USFL as well. Explain to me what made Ray kind of stand out from the rest.
So, if Ray extremely talented, but if Ray had an off day and he had nothing to do, the number one thing he wanted to do just for fun that day was go run routes. Like, he was such a passionate guy when it came to route running and football, and he was such a master of his craft. And so, like, there's a time It's that work ethic that separate himself from so many other guys. And also when the sperm hit the egg, Ray Bolden, like a lot of guys at the professional level, they came out on top. And so, the first time I saw him explode out of his stance and run a route, it was just different than everybody else around him. And so, he pays attention to detail. He's coachable. He has strong opinions, but he's also a great guy to work with. He has physical gifts, but I mean, the time he has put in to being a route runner, and he can run any route, he can do anything because he's tried it. He's tried different ways to get in and out of his breaks. He's studied the game, he's talked to people, and so that's ultimately what made him super, super successful at Moore Park, and then obviously Stony Brook, and he had a cup of tea with the Eagles, and then he had some success with us for the Michigan Panthers, and also it speaks to just how many good players are in the USFL, UFL, where a guy like Ray Bolden, who was one of the best players I ever coached and had an unbelievable SCS career and almost got an NFL look coming out of training camp with the Eagles, also was a rotational guy with us for the Panthers because he was behind the likes of some of the really, really good players we had on that roster. And so it's crazy how it works and timing and opportunity. And who knows, he may be another guy that we try and get to Baltimore, but like I said, we'll cast a wide net and go find the best possible players we can that are going to come in and work and compete and have a chip on their shoulder and do it every day with a smile on their face. And I think that's a lot of this thing too, is how can we make it a really positive environment that players and coaches want to be a part of. There's a grind to football, but at the same time, nobody wants to show up and be miserable for 4 months and the season ends. Like, we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. And I think the cool part about this league is the opportunity, but also playing some games in Mexico and being in home cities and those different things versus the hub model. It is going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be really cool. And my first year in playing in Europe, I played in the Italian Super Bowl. And, it was surreal. It was just flat out surreal. D3 guy that, was worried about just not getting sent home when he showed up to Italy. And we ended up having a great year, winning the first, beating Bergamo, who was, had won it for a decade. And all of a sudden we win it. And my parents are flying to Italy to see the championship game. And, it's going to be the same thing for whichever two teams face off in Mexico City next year in August in the championship game. It's like, it's not something a bunch of American football players dreamed of, but at the same time, it's going to be a heck of an opportunity and just surreal and super fun. If you're on one of the teams that gets that opportunity and is lucky enough to come out on top of that championship game again, played in Mexico City, how cool is that?
Absolutely. And, judging from some LFA games that I've watched over the past couple of years, the Mexico fans are very invested in football. So it's going to be a lot of support down there, I imagine. I wanted to talk about your time in the USFL a little bit because you got to work under two great head coaches, Jeff Fisher in your first season and then Mike Nolan in your second season. So I wanted to kind of ask you, how did their styles differ and how has watching them work kind of influenced how you're going to approach your head coaching position?
Yeah, I think the first thing I took away with Coach Fisher was just how professional he treated guys. And so I was coming from Grambling and I was coming from the junior college level where you're just on guys' ass at the college level because, that's just kind of how it is. And, everybody that plays college football says they want to go to the NFL and, but their actions on a daily basis or their commitment levels sometimes can waver, right? And so I think it's just different maturity levels. And so a lot of times we are very paranoid as coaches, for better or worse, really trying to stay on top of our guys. And so as far as Coach Fisher, from day one, he was treating guys like professionals. And so, the respect he showed to players, the way he communicated, that was something I very quickly adopted in my style. And, I tell people that I yell less or yelled less in my 2 years in the USFL than I ever had in my coaching career, because again, guys mean well, they're committed, they do the right things. And, you can walk over and put your arm around a guy and have a conversation about a misassignment or whatever it may be. And because, he wants to get it right just as bad as you, and he's putting in the work to make it happen. So again, that's one of the reasons why I love coaching at the pro level, because not nearly as often you have to use your, fastball and really get after guys, because typically they're just as motivated as you are. And so, that was something I picked up. And then, I think Coach Nolan just had such a wealth of knowledge, especially what he was able to communicate to me and show me as far as what was going on the defense side of the ball, and some of those different things, and the way personnel impacts the game. I'd say I took a little more tactically from him, where I probably adapted a little more of Coach Fisher's management style. So, I think anytime you work for someone, whether you think they're the best coach in the world or the worst coach in the world or somewhere in between, you say, okay, hey, if I have an opportunity, I'm going to do it exactly like that. Or if I have an opportunity, maybe that's good, but I think I'll do it a little different. So, there's a lot of things that I'll model after those two guys, and there's definitely some things that I'll put my own spin on. But ultimately, I feel really, really grateful to get the opportunity that I had working for both those guys, and took a lot of lessons. And, also it gave me a lot of confidence that one day, as I continue to prepare for the opportunity, that when I got it, I'd be more than ready.
I wanted to ask you, you have a tryout coming up. It's a 3-hour tryout. Kind of walk me through what those 3 hours are going to consist of.
Yeah. So, for me, the testing piece, there'll be a testing component to it. But, I think having an understanding of, it's not like these guys are trained for their pro day, right? So, also, you can go pull pro day times from a lot of different places. So again, we want to see guys get out and move, and do some testing, and just be able to get some numbers there and see how they differentiate themselves. But for me, it's about trying to give guys an opportunity to go compete and play football. And so, as much as we can get out of just the testing drill space, and hopefully we can get some 7-on-7 and 1-on-1s, and even some sort of light inside run or different things like that, where you give the guys an opportunity to, they're gonna have to learn a little bit, and they're gonna have an opportunity to go out and compete and show what they can do. But the other thing for me is, the tryout is just one piece of information that's going to confirm, what your college tape said, or what your professional tape is. And so, I think it's really important for guys to understand that we're pulling information from everywhere. And so, when you show up to your tryout, hopefully, you have your tape, your YouTube link to your highlight tape. And I mean, if I were a player these days, I would make sure I had a couple games on deck, and game tapes on deck, and everything else. I just think it's so easy compared to the days of mailing out DVDs and whatever else. Just make sure you have all your film saved up from everywhere you played at, and having your Google Drive. And once upon a time, I tried out for an arena team out in LA. Man, this was years ago. Would have been like 2009. I can't even tell you what league or team it was, but one of the coaches on the team said, "Hey, we take a lot of pride that we look at every single piece of film that comes, through our door, however we termed it. But sometimes it goes in for one play. And so, when you're sending in your highlight tape, you better make sure the best football play you've made in your life is number one." And so, I think that's always an important message to get out to guys, whether it's a high school player trying to get a college look, or a professional, or a guy that wants to get a look at in the pros. Like, we don't need pictures. We don't need the slow motion shot of you walking out of the tunnel, or just in the first minute, in the first 30 seconds, how many different things can you show me that make me excited about you as a football player? And so, if you're a quarterback, I hope it's not just 2 minutes of you throwing fade ball touchdowns. I want to see a vertical throw, but I also want to see you read a concept. I want to see you get off your spot and make a play with your arm. I want to see you get out of the pocket and make a play with your legs. I want to see you involved in the run game. I want to see some quick game, the ball get out right now. I want to see you off boot or play action. Again, how many things can you show me in the first 30 seconds to a minute that make me really, really excited? And, O-line, linebackers, it's all the same stuff. And so, guys need to everybody says that your film's your resume, but find somebody who can help you cut a really concise tape. Again, it's just PFF, and so it's so easy now. Talk to one of your coaches, ask them to make a cut up of all your plays, whether it's professionally or in college, and figure out a way to make yourself a great highlight tape and do a great job of bringing the information to these spring league coaches, because we do have limited resources. And so, if you were an all conference guy, all American, if you were 10th in the nation in tackles, get a title slide and get that information on there, put it in the word in the email, and get people excited about your film. But again, make sure you have a tremendous highlight tape that's, going to get people excited. And then also I would include some game tape with it, because the first thing I want to do after I find a highlight tape that I like is, I'm not going to watch a ton of game tape, but I just want to go click on a game and see what it looks like when, it's not curated for my viewing pleasure. So, guys need to, it doesn't always happen, but my professional advice to guys would just be spend the time and a little bit of money to make that tape as good as it possibly can be, because we all have short attention spans right now. It's no longer the YouTube generation, or if you're really old, you remember Vines. It's TikTok and even less. So, we're going to watch as much film as we can and give everybody a look. But also, I'm not going to spend a lot of time watching tape if it doesn't jump out and grab me. If it's not a prospect that I think I really need to dive deep into, we'll just keep moving.
Great advice. Great advice. I hope every player listening right now heard that, because it's something that I echoed on multiple occasions. It looks great to have that, slow-mo shot like you talked about coming out of the tunnel and stuff, but it's really taking away from what the coach is going to gather information-wise, and within the first couple minutes or 30 seconds. There's been so many times I've watched a highlight tape and fast-forwarded 30 seconds immediately to get to the actual content. So I can imagine on a much wider a margin, that's happening quite a bit. And Shane Anderson from the Beavers says, get the music out of the highlight tapes too.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mute button, Shane. I just say that.
Yeah, that's a little more preference, but no, to each their own. And but again, and Fiverr, and I mean, there's just so many different resources out there that if you're spend a little money, this is your career. You know what I mean? So have somebody do a great job with it and make it as concise and tight as possible to give you the best possible opportunity to attract some attention. It's a competitive world, and that's just try and give yourself every advantage you possibly can. You don't want to lose out to maybe a player that's not quite as good just because he's done a better job of packaging his highlights.
Great point. I'm glad you made it. Chris, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, my final question for you is, coming up on the college football season, it gets started in full swing this week. You look at around the game, around Division I, any offensive philosophies or schemes we should pay attention to this year that are new and upcoming?
I mean, I think that usually the numbers speak pretty highly, and so the teams that year in year out have figured out ways to put up a lot of offense at the FBS FCS level. But Alex Mortensen down at UAB, he's someone that I got to know my first year working in the USFL. We actually were supposed to be on staff together that first year, and he ended up not being on to work the full season. But he just finished his first year as coordinator at UAB, and a lot of guys get opportunities. I shouldn't say a lot of guys, but some guys get opportunities at really good programs, and they're able to put up a lot of yards with talent. But Alex stepped into a situation where he didn't necessarily have the best players, but they were 20th in offense, and I just thought really creative and dynamic all year long is figuring out how to stress and challenge people. So I'll watch a ton of football, and the offenses that I think do a great job are ones that figure out ways to play with some tempo or move and shift, and also figure out a way to develop a passing game. And I know that's more challenging than ever with the transfer portal. So a lot of coaches try and dumb it down and make it real simple, but I also think it just puts more stress on us as coaches. As we have to be even better teachers and coaches and develop in really, really concise passing games and make things digestible for our quarterbacks and definitive reads and because it's not I mean, I grew up watching Mike Leach at Texas Tech roll out a fifth-year quarterback that we'd never ever heard of that would throw for 5,000 yards every single year, right? And that's just not the way it is anymore. You know, a lot of these programs are playing with guys that maybe transferred into May and they're starting quarterbacks. So I understand some of the simplification, but at the same time, I mean, I work in a sector of football where typically we get 1 month to go to camp and we don't have the depth of roster to get nearly as many reps as we want in the passing game, but we figured out a way to be pretty successful throwing the ball in my 2 years in the USFL, and we're going to be pretty darn good at it with Lightning. And so, you know, you got to be creative in how you teach it and do a really good job there. But, I'm always excited to watch college football. Actually, I saw Kurt Warner talking about it on Twitter. I wish they would make the college hashes the same as the pro hashes. I hate the wide hashes in college, and it's even worse in high school. One thing I fell in love with the pro game is the ball being in the middle of the field, and it makes the passing game better. You know, college, there's such a heavy dependence on all the formation and the boundary stuff, and even in the breakdowns at the college level, everything's formation and boundary. At the pro level, everything's strong and weak because the ball's in the middle of the field. It makes it a better game. It makes the passing game better. It's not nearly as gimmicky offensively as far as just shoving all your players in the boundary and seeing if the defense is actually going to walk their nickel in the boundary or if they're going to keep in the field. So, but that's just me on tangent. I apologize, boys. But no, a lot of good college offenses out there. Grubb went to my Seattle Seahawks, the Washington coordinator. So I'm excited to see that transition. I mean, he did such a phenomenal job, and Penix was such a unbelievable college quarterback. I mean, about as professional as you get as far as an accuracy and ability to see things. So I'm excited to see what he'll do with the Seahawks. And I'm sure I'm leaving some really, really good guys out. But I think sometimes I'll look at Ole Miss, and it's very different from what I do stylistically and schematically, but I learn a lot. And then there's other times where maybe you put on a North Dakota State or someone that plays with bigger personnel that it's a little more akin to what I believe in, and you take ideas there. So you can get inspiration and ideas from anywhere. And so then it's just a matter of how well you can package it for your guys and make sure when they show up to camp that you've done a great job of building the package for them that they're going to be able to learn and digest and go out and execute at a high level come week one.
Absolutely. I've got one more question for you before I let you get out of here for the night. Obviously, part of this league is the fact that they're international, correct? I mean, they're kind of trying to draw in some Hispanic and Mexican players as well. When you go about recruiting Mexican players, how are you kind of altering your approach when you're going down there? Because I know that the college football system probably isn't as diverse, we'll say, as the U.S.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. And so right now the rules are you have to have 5 international passports per team. So one years ago, it is not a Mexican passport. So, hey, I'll reach out to my Austrian and Italian connections if there's some great, young players, or also just make sure we're doing a good job of evaluating the seniors that are the seniors in college football that are from other countries. And so, you can get guys from anywhere, and even just dual passport Americans, right? We see that a lot in the ELF and different leagues over in Europe. So there's obviously getting better and better college football and professional football in Mexico, and we see the sport growing all over the world. So you have a lot of different avenues that you can try and find your international players from. It is going to be an interesting dynamic for the 3 teams based out of Mexico as far as their capacity to recruit Americans down there to fill out their roster, as opposed to the 5 U.S.-based teams. How many local players, Mexican national players they'll be playing with, and how they'll be able to compete with American teams. And so, ultimately, a 53-man roster, 40 active on game day, and so 40 active is a small outfit. And if I can tell another European war story, playing with the Bolzano Giants my first year, I remember going out to stretching lines one day. I'm like, oh man, we have a lot of guys healthy this week, and I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there's 4 lines. I'm like, oh, we have 28 guys, and so, but we were really, really good. We beat a lot of people. And, the lesson I took away from that was, you may not have 60 guys like some of these other European teams, but you put 11 on each side of the ball, you got 22 guys that can flat out go. And, it's the same thing when you have a 40-man roster, right? Where you may be practicing with 53 and maybe the last 5 guys on your roster are guys that aren't quite the players that your top 22 are, but at the same time, it's, as a coach, you got to get the top of your roster ready to go, and of course you want to fortify it with depth, but nobody's getting evaluated in college football on the bottom 20% of the roster. It's the same thing in our league, so everyone's got to recruit really hard. I feel like I'm back in college football right now with the amount of calls I'm making, and it's different from the UFL or USFL, I should say, where you had to do. Actually, I shouldn't say it's that different. The difference is in the USFL, the money was good enough that players didn't have to think about that part. Versus, no different than arena. We pay a little bit better, but it's still not that much where it's like, oh man, no brainer. If you're still in the arena and you're chasing it, yeah, you're gonna do it. But if you've been out working professionally, making good money, it's a hard thing possibly to jump back into. But I mean, we're recruiting like crazy and trying to close contracts and get guys to sign on the dotted line to be a part of the team because we think we really believe in what we have to offer. But that's the irony, especially being the spring league. People think that it's not like college. In a lot of ways it isn't, but you still got to go out and recruit against arena, recruit against perception, recruit against whatever it may be. And so it's all about call and text volume, and that's how you build an empire. And so that's the mentality that we're trying to take and leave no stone unturned, and call text, however we can answer questions and get the word out there on the Baltimore Lightning. Julian, Matt, myself, and our GM Will Hannah are going to go make it happen.
Absolutely. A quick follow-up question based on what you were just saying. Obviously, like you said, 40 guys is kind of a challenge. I mean, a couple injuries, all of a sudden you've got players, playing out of position. How much value do you find in players that can play both ways or play multiple positions in a situation like this?
Yeah, it's been a conversation we've had, amongst our personnel guys. And so positional versatility is extremely important in a very limited spot. And I'll give you a couple of examples here in a second, but it's not like the thing I hate getting is an email saying, hey coach, I play linebacker, I play fullback, I play tight end, I play, this is professional football. Tell me what position you want to be evaluated at, because we're not going to have guys playing 8 different positions, right? That's just not how it is. And it's not how it is on the Seahawks or how it is on the Sam. What team are you rooting for these days?
The Eagles.
The Eagles. But that being said, positional versatility. One thing that I really learned being in the USFL for 2 years and having those same roster limitations is like our 5th receiver would be our 3rd running back, and that really was important because that first year we would carry 3 running backs and then be in a situation where we'd have 2 active tight ends and 5 receivers, or 3 active tight ends and 4 receivers. And it was always a situation where, okay, if your running backs didn't get hurt, your 3rd guy was hardly playing. But if you're only carrying 2 tight ends and 1 tight end gets hurt, that completely changes your game plan and all your short yardage stuff is out the window. Or if it's a game where you get down and now all of a sudden you got to be in a lot of 10 personnel and you only have 4 active receivers that week, or God forbid there's an injury, all your 4 open stuff is just so having guys on both sides of the ball that or having a couple guys that are designated, hey, you're basically, if we're carrying 2.5 running backs, we're carrying 4.5 receivers, right? You have that last guy that can swing and play both, or on the defensive side of the ball. It's really having a DN that can also play maybe Sam linebacker. So if you're getting a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, you have a guy, another linebacker that can get in there and do those things, but he can also be a situational rusher or step up because of injury and play quality snaps at the DN position. Same thing with corners, being able to play safety and those different things. So it's really, really important I would say at a micro level. micro and macro. Sam, I'm a football coach, man. I can add, subtract up to 11. So I'll stay away from the math terms, but it's really important on the small scale. But on the big, grand scheme of things, like, oh, we're never going to have a D lineman that we need to convert to offensive lineman. We'll just go sign somebody that week. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of professional ball. So, I think that's good for people to understand. There's positional versatility. It can be really, really valuable. But again, when you're trying to get attention from a professional team, we don't need, hey coach, if you need a running back, if you need we don't need anybody. I mean, our inboxes are full. There's so many good players out there that are looking for the best possible players that we can attract to our level.
Absolutely makes perfect sense, especially on the outdoor level. Chris, anything else from you, buddy?
No, I'm all set. Coach, great talking to you today, and I look forward to watching the Lightning in 2025.
Yes, sir. May can't come soon enough. I appreciate the time as always, fellas. And Sam, don't wait 2 more years before you have me on again, okay?
Sounds great. I mean, shoot, I'm still kind of bugging Will about doing a show this year, so maybe we'll make it a weekly affair.
There we go. Sounds great. Have a great night, gentlemen.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who tuned in. And just in case you didn't have enough leagues to look at, Coach Marty, here's one more you might want to scout at.
Winter is coming.
And he can make something magical happen here. And there goes the ball. It's going. You're a fan.
Battles will be won.
Hold on now.
At the 30, and he
Who's going to take victory?
Stop! He's not